Welcome to episode 17 of the Liberty Itch podcast. My guest today is, for the second time, Libertarian member of the New South Wales Legislative Council, John Ruddick. But this could be a very different John Ruddick. You see, on August 3rd, 2025, John allegedly transformed from good, wholesome, moral, libertarian, pro-Israel Christian into a depraved, communist, pro-Hamas Muslim terrorist. Or so you might have believed if you'd listened to Ep17 in his recent bullying interrogation of John on YouTube, or if you read the volumes of bizarre hysterical abuse hurled at John on social media, all because he attended a protest against the Israeli government's genocide in Gaza. According to the accusations, John spoke agreeably to a Marxist at the protest, and therefore John must now be a Marxist. There were Muslims at the protest, so John must have converted to Islam. Hopefully there were no diabetics at the protest, or John must need insulin stat. Mostly the protest was against an Israeli government policy, and therefore John must be against all Jews and Judaism. He must be an antisemite. Honestly, I could not make any sense of the logic. It seemed that all the pro-war faux libertarians, otherwise known as conservatives, were behaving uncomfortably similarly to left-wing lunatics. Was John really an anti-Semite? Or has anti-Semite become the right's reflexive slur to shut down debate in the same way the left screams racist whenever someone asks an uncomfortably valid question? Are we witnessing the rise of right-wing wokeism? This is why I asked John back on the show, to clear the air and give his side of the story without endless interruptions and dismissive eye-rolling. But before talking with him, I had to find out exactly how is anti-Semite defined. Genuine anti-Semitism, like genuine racism, is utterly grotesque and abhorrent, obviously. But I was concerned that the term was becoming weaponized for political purposes. Turns out, yep, it has been. The definition being used by the US government to prosecute people is every bit as baffling as the left-wing identity politics of the Biden administration. The working definition of anti-Semitism comes from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, or IHRA. That definition of anti-Semitism is, quote, a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities, end quote. What is the certain perception of Jews that determines anti-Semitism? Nobody knows. They won't say. If you need to ask, you're probably an anti-Semite. By this widely criticized definition, the most respected rabbis on earth could unknowingly be anti-Semitic. The IHRA goes on to give examples of anti-Semitism, such as, quote, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, end quote. So I guess we can only hope the Israeli government doesn't, force a bunch of people into a walled-off area to starve and exterminate them. Speaking of which, the next obvious question is, what constitutes a genocide? In the interview, I discuss the formal definition of genocide with John and go over the basic facts demonstrating that the situation in Gaza clearly is a genocide. But if you don't accept our arguments, then please consider the arguments of the International Association of Genocide Scholars, which incidentally was founded by two Jews. They have produced a formal public resolution on the situation in Gaza. In it, they outline the numerous crimes carried out by the IDF and Israeli government in Gaza that constitute a genocide. The link to the report is in the show notes below. The criticism of John seems eerily reminiscent of when former US President George W. Bush declared his extraordinary, brilliant, seminal doctrine, either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. There is no in between. We all know how that turned out, but like so much of what Bush Jr. said, something about that false dichotomy never quite made sense to me. Is it really not possible to be utterly appalled by a terrorist attack and also be appalled by a government genocide? The Honourable Mr. Ruddick shall enlighten you on all of this and more in the following discussion. Mr. John Ruddick, thank you very much for coming back on the Liberty Itch podcast. It's great to see you again.
Damon, nice to see you, mate.
Now, you incensed a lot of people, particularly Ep17 the other week when you went on a protest in Sydney across the bridge, and you hung out with some Marxists and some Muslims, which means you are now no longer a libertarian. You are actually a Marxist or a Muslim, because apparently the people that you surround yourself with for 5 minutes turns you into agreeing with every one of those people's statements for the rest of time. What actually was your intention? What, in your words, were you protesting for? What was the point that you were trying to get across?
Well, Damon, we've all grown up, people of your generation, my generation, and we thought, if we were in Germany in the 1930s, that we would have made a stand against atrocities. We would have done something. Okay, and most people believe that. They thought, no, if I was there, I wouldn't have. And they look at the Germans and they think, oh, they didn't do anything. That's terrible. So I thought, look, I saw a speech by John Mearsheimer, who's a very, very good professor of international affairs, and he said about
John a lot.
Yeah, good. He said, he spoke in Sydney, just down the road from where I am right now, about 18 months ago, and he said TikTok is going to be the Zionists' biggest enemy, because TikTok is putting out, and not just TikTok, all social media, but it's, for young people and stuff, unbelievable atrocities every single day. Okay, and so I thought to myself, okay, the easy thing to do would have been to do nothing, but I do see sometimes politicians do take a stand on this issue after they've left office, and I thought, look, this is sort of, I don't like that. I thought people should be in Parliament because they want to sort of, speak the unfiltered truth as they see it. And so I thought, no, if I'm going to have courage, I do feel strongly that, a genocide is happening right before our eyes. And and I thought, well, there's people going to be marching to try and stop this. And I think it had some effect. That those scenes were seen around the world, and that's a good thing because everyone knows the Harbour Bridge is like the Eiffel Tower, right? Now, Damon, when I was a teenager, I was a little bit of a wayward teenager for a couple of years, and then a very good thing happened to me, which was I joined a church. This is in a little country town in Tamworth, and it was a very good experience for me. And I'm very fond of that church still to this day. And they used to teach us every Sunday. They used to inject it into our veins. Jesus is going to come back. When the Jews have gone back to Israel and built the third temple. Okay, so I really got that into my DNA. And as time went on, sort of my faith evolved. I've changed my religion about 6 times, and because I think about these things, But my consistent support, my ardent support of the Zionist project was unflinching. And when October the 7th happened, there's been a lot of atrocities in that part of the world since 1920. People say it's been going on for centuries. No, this is it's a more modern thing. It's a political thing.
Agreed.
The Jews lived very happily in the Middle East for 2,000 years. And now it wasn't perfect, okay? But I mean, in Europe, in Christian Europe, there's inquisitions and pogroms and holocausts, okay? Bad things. And Jews being expelled from countries, even England, even good old England. But across the Middle East, I'm not saying it was perfect, but there were thriving Jewish communities. 100 years ago today, Damon, 20% of Baghdad was Jewish. And those Jews had been there for 2,500 years, the Babylonian exile. And they were Avi Yemeni, our dear friend Avi, he's obviously from Yemen. The Jewish community in Yemen lived there, undisturbed for a very long time. And then unfortunately, now what has happened is the after October the 7th, okay, and I spoke out in the Parliament more than any other member, okay, in defence of what had happened, because that October the 7th was the worst atrocity that's happened. There's been tit-for-tat retaliation for 100 years. It just goes on and on and on and on, and everyone wants to respond. That was a very, very, very bad event in terms of a single-day tragedy, no question about it. Now then, what should have happened is, I would have hoped, now this is your viewers are going to think this is so unrealistic, but this is what I believe should have happened, Damon. The most famous Jew that's ever lived is Jesus. Okay, you don't have to believe he's the Son of God, but I think everyone in the world...
he existed, yes.
Well, and they also say he's a great guy. Yeah. Everyone says Jesus is a great guy. Muslims say he's a great guy. Jews, Christians, atheists, communists, libertarians, every Buddhist, Confucian, everyone is the only person in world history where everyone says, oh, yeah, Jesus is cool. Jesus is great. And he was a very wise man and a very kind man. And a big thing he used to teach was de-escalation, okay? Because basically we're just advanced apes. And apes used to be in all these tribal conflicts all the time, right?
Yeah.
Jesus came along at the right moment and he said, look, if someone hits you on the left cheek, let them hit you on the right cheek. And that's just so unhuman. Humans want to retaliate. Mm-hmm. It's very after 9/11 and after 7th of October, I really wanted to retaliate. Now, but what should have happened if we had sober minds, we should have said, the Israelis, Mr. Netanyahu, should have said, okay, look, these atrocities have been going on for a century. We keep retaliating. We've got about 3,000 prisoners right now that are uncharged, Palestinians in Israeli jails. Please give us back our hostages. Please give us back all of the hostages. And we'll give you back these 3,500 people. And then let's have a once and for all, get it done, peace settlement. And there was so much goodwill towards Israel in the days after October the 7th. Now, why has it changed? Why has there been this big, massive collapse in support for Israel in the Western world, across the entire world? Mm-hmm. And it's because they've gone too far. And if you can't see that, you're blind. And Damon, people under the age of 40, left and right, all see this. Overwhelmingly, they see it. People over the age of 50, they can't see it.
This is what I've noticed. Yeah.
People that I like, people that I've respected all my life, people whose intellect I have respected, they just can't see it. And it's like very few people over the age of 50 have changed their mind on this subject. And I'm thinking, gee, the facts have changed. If you can't see that, then you're part of the problem.
Well,
I'll tell you one other last thing, Damon, really important. Sure. I looked it up just yesterday. There's an election in Israel due next October, but it could happen beforehand. Do you know who else agrees with us? The Israeli people agree with us that Netanyahu's gone too far. The polls say overwhelmingly he's going to lose badly.
I've got these statistics here. Netanyahu in his own party, the maximum he's ever achieved in all of his elections in the last 30 years is 23%. In coalitions, the maximum he's ever achieved is 30%. So it would seem to me that in terms of standing with Israel, by which it is meant that you're standing with the Israeli government, you're already going against 70% plus of the Israeli population anyway, not to mention then the 5 or 6 million Palestinians who aren't able to vote in the robust democracy that is Israel as well. Which, I don't know, did you see the other day the protests in Israel itself?
I did. They were massive, huge.
They were enormous. It was seas of people as far as the eye could see in Israel against this too. There's actually a Wikipedia page now on all of the people who are agreeing with South Africa's motion in the International Court of Justice for recognizing it as a genocide and charging Bibi and others with that. And it's not up to date yet. I've heard Sergei Lavrov from Russia and the foreign minister of China, also India, have also come out and said that it's a genocide as well. But when you include those in it, it's just the map is just all the countries in agreement with this. So Avi did start with I thought, a good point in your discussion the other day when he was trying to ask you the definition of genocide. Of course, he did it in the ungentlemanly way where he had the definition in his hand and he asked you to recite the dictionary so that he could prove that you're stupid and don't know exactly what you're talking about because the terminology wasn't precise. Genocide, the phrase or the term was coined by Raphael Lemkin, who was Jewish, Polish, I believe. And he described it as the destruction of a nation or an ethnic group by means such as the disintegration of its political and social institutions, of its culture, language, national feelings, religion, and its economic existence. So then, according to the 1948 United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, they said that something qualifies as genocide if any of the following 5 acts is committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. So there's got to be intent, and it can be partial. It doesn't need to be that you're trying to wipe out the entire thing. Those 5 issues are killing members of the group, which I think we can agree has been occurring, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, which obviously has been happening, deliberately inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the group's physical destruction, which we can get into, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, which maybe not is as relevant to the other. In terms of just some quick facts for you to then answer on, according to the UN, they've described it as 1.9 million people internally displaced in Gaza. Now, this is an area smaller than half the size of Canberra, with a population of 2.2 million, currently 1.9 million trapped in this small area. They've dropped, the IDF has dropped 70,000 tons of TNT equivalent explosive, apparently, on the area, which, according to some basic mathematical algorithms and figures, is enough to kill every living thing 6 times over and enough to destroy every man-made structure 1.5 times over. So they've trapped 1.9 million people in an area half the size of Canberra, dropped enough explosives on the area to kill everybody 6 times over. They haven't let food in or out or water. The infrastructure is completely destroyed. We're supposed to believe only 70,000 people have died in this entire episode. It's been going on nearly 2 years. Now, I can't see how anyone could say that's not a genocide by the definition that I just gave you. In terms of intent, how do you continue bombing 1.9 million people in a easily targetable area for 2 years, not give them food or water, and not expect them all to die? What am I?
I saw a claim recently, which I was skeptical of when I first saw it, which was that more journalists have died in this Gaza war than died in all of World War II. World War II was a massive thing that went for 6 years. More journalists have died. I looked it up. It's true.
It's true. The recent double tap on the hospital that they just did, where they bombed the hospital, waited for the people to come, they killed more journalists than that one. I forget how many, but it's just, this is just...
5, I think. 5.
Yeah.
Now, so they don't want scrutiny, okay? And so you asked how sure can we be that 70,000 have died? Who the hell's counting the bodies? The place is rubble. There's nothing left, okay? And even if it's right that 70 have been killed by a bullet, how many have been killed by, not being able to have a doctor, not running out of food, But
like I say, it's 1.9 million people. We're talking almost a tenth of the population of all of Australia stuck in a suburb and then bombed relentlessly for 2 years with no food or water. How can it possibly be that 1.9 million people in the desert without water and food? Like, it's just absurd.
Well, you know who agrees with you? There's a professor at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. His name's Abraham Love or something. Okay. Anyway, he's the head of genocide studies at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Okay. He has unequivocally told the media in public in Israel, he says what is happening is a genocide. Okay. So this is now what's their goal here? They just want to get them out. They thought. I'm not saying most Israelis. I'm saying that the revisionist Zionists, the people.
Well, it's important to state this. Sorry to interrupt, but it's important to state we're talking about the government. We're not talking about Jews. We're not talking about Israelis. We are talking about the Netanyahu regime. And for some, So sorry, continue.
Now, look, it's a good point. Look, I haven't been to Israel. I know a lot of people who have been to Israel. But, I think I've read a lot about it. By and large, it seems like it's a very sort of liberal democratic country, a reasonably normal Western country.
Yeah.
Now, then there's this foreign policy issue where there is this element there that simply wants to continue expanding. Now, I believe what happened after October 7th, when we were all shocked about it, I believe that, and we were worried about the hostages. All humane people were worried about the hostages. I believe Netanyahu and his little mates were just licking their lips. They're saying, this is the greatest opportunity we're ever going to get. Let's make the most of it. I'm certain that's what he said. Mm-hmm. And to back that up, 10 days after October the 7th, there was just by chance, there was a very, very senior person from Washington visiting the parliament. and I think he might have family in Australia. Elliot Abrams is his name.
Mm.
He was a very senior person in the Reagan administration and one of the architects of the war on terror. And he gives a presentation here in the Parliament. And I was the first person to ask him a question. And I said to him, Mr. Abrams, I've never seen so much goodwill towards Israel in my life. And he sort of scoffed at me, and he sort of said, and this is before there's been any retaliation. He sort of scoffed at me and said, well, that won't last. So I sort of thought, well, that's a bit weird. It's like he knows there's going to be a big war here. Then I said, then my question was, what's happening with the hostages? What's the plan to get the hostages out, the poor bastards? I mean, these people have been in an absolute hell, okay? And there's still, 30 there or something in there. And he just said, he scoffed at me again. He said, look. It's been long-term Israeli policy to not have the welfare of the hostages as a factor in our strategy for war. Mm. So he was saying, look, it's very sad, but I mean, that's just not.
He was softening the Hannibal Directive, which so many people have spoken about.
That's right. Mm. Now, so that's what I believe, that they licked their lips and they said, fantastic, we're going to get Gaza. We'll just make life so unbearable for them. Someone's going to have to take them. Australia can take them. England can take them. America can take them. These. I'll tell you what is absolutely appalling is that the other Islamic states do not want to help, and they do not want to help. And this is Egypt doesn't want to help. They've all got their own reasons. Mm. You'd think, these Gulf states, Qatar and Bahrain and Kuwait, very, very wealthy, very, very wealthy, and they have a ton of people there on temporary visas from India and Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, a ton of people. And they don't pay tax, or very, very little tax, okay? And they like working there. They send their money back to their family in India, and then they return there eventually. But that's a win-win situation. Mm. Why can't it be the Palestinians? Okay, but they don't want Palestinians there, okay, because they think, well, we can ask the Indians to go home, or force the Indians to go home, but if a Palestinian comes here, then we're stuck with them. So they really are lacking compassion, okay, and that must be noted, that it is really outrageous. I mean, we're dealing with 2 million people in Gaza. They could be, I think the West has taken in a lot of these people after the Syrian war and others, the Lebanese war. We've taken in a lot, and I really think that the Western public is getting a bit sick of immigration. But that's Gaza. Now, what about the West Bank? The West Bank is a lot more developed, a lot more generally peaceful, got shopping centres, auto dealers and stuff. It's a reasonable, functional society. And since October the 7th, the West Bank has been pretty calm and quiet. Mm. I mean, if I say there hasn't been rockets coming over, someone will say, well, there has been 1 or 2 rockets. Okay, well, it's very low intensity. But what's happening there in the West Bank is, which is not being reported in the Western media, okay, but it's indisputable. The West Bank settlers, the Israeli settlers, the really radical Zionists, just keep moving in there, keep moving into the West Bank, which is meant to be Palestinian territory, and they just sort of take stuff over and build their homes and stuff. And every US president, since at least Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, has said to the Israeli Prime Minister, look, Mr. Prime Minister, got to stop these settlements, it's sort of upsetting the balance, it's a tinderbox. And the Israeli Prime Minister says, yes, Mr. President, it won't happen again. More people, Damien, in May this year went into radical Israeli settlers went into the West Bank this May than in any month since the 1980s. Mm. So and that's not getting attention. So they moved into Syria recently. They've taken over a big swab of southern Syria recently. That's not being reported. Okay, that's a big deal. So,
there's in the research, there's a whole bunch of issues with it. I mean, Israel's the only nation, recognized nation, in which the actual borders aren't agreed upon. It's the only one. There are disputed borders in different Pakistan and India and different countries, but Israel's the only one where they're not actually recognized borders in the international sense. And it could stretch somewhere into Syria, and it could stretch somewhere into Jordan. And it's, I guess, the issue, and even coming back to the immigration, like you said, about the other countries taking in the Palestinians, doesn't really address what's being done to the Palestinians inside of Gaza, where they're trapped. They can't get out. We know they get shot if they approach the border to try to escape. My biggest question with this is why what is with the fawning over Israel and the free pass to do all of these things that would be completely unacceptable by anyone else anywhere else in the world? Why is it that I can criticize I can criticize Albanese, I can go to town on him and nobody will argue with me or see anything wrong with that? I can criticize any leader of any country in the world and nobody will have an issue except Benjamin Netanyahu. And as you said, it's something in the baby boomer generation, or 50 plus in particular, but then also some younger people too. And it's this passionate, I stand with Israel, right through to yourself and then politicians in America in particular. Ted Cruz, when he was on Tucker Carlson, is there proudly announcing that he's going to be Israel's strongest, staunchest supporter. Like there's something meaningful in that as an American, I should give a shit about a politician who's supposed to be representing my country and caring about my dirt, worrying about another country a million miles away. And likewise in Australia. Why would I want or care for a politician to be more concerned with another country than my own? Make it make sense, please.
Well, it's mainly the United States.
Very much, yes.
Pretty important country. Okay. Yeah. Skepticism of radical Zionism is now, fairly mainstream across Europe, and the polls are saying it's the same case in Australia. But the United States is important because, well, it's a superpower. It's the
policeman of the world. Yeah.
So how did we get to this situation? Well, what happened was in 1881, there was those Russian czars were bastards. Okay, they never wanted to introduce a parliament. They never wanted to introduce any liberal reforms. And the further west you go in Europe, the more liberal the reforms were. Britain, okay, the better things were. But the poor old Russian people had these bastards. But there was a reasonably good czar from about 1856 to 1881. His name was Tsar Alexander II, I think. And he brought in some pretty good reforms. And then he got shot by political extremists. And the guy that shot him wasn't a Jew, but some of his associates were, and the Jews got the blame. And then what happened? And this is when, at this time, 80% of the Jews in the world lived in Russia. But Russia at the time included half of Eastern Europe, Poland and stuff, Ukraine. Now, so then there was this, the next Tsar that came along sort of got rid of these liberal reforms and really cracked down. They had anti-Jewish pogroms, and they were brutal, and they were horrible, and they were evil. And they were sort of localized, okay, but the localized across a long area and across several years, like probably 20 years. And what happened was the Tsar basically sort of let it happen. He sort of said, oh, whatever happens, I don't care. But they were horrible situations. Now, what happened then is about 90% of the Jews, a ton of them wanted to get the hell out. And about 90% of them went to the United States. And this is where the big Jewish community in the United States comes from. About 5% of them went to France and Britain, and about 5% of them went down to a little place called Palestine. They were often the young men who were up for a fight. Okay, anyway. Now, but we had this big influx of Eastern European Jews into the United States from the 1880s up until sort of just after World War I. Mm-hmm. Now, those people were often sort of left-wing political people, often very bright, good at science and everything else, okay, finance, okay, but they were, because they didn't like the Tsar, because he was a big right-wing fascist, basically, they were sort of rebelling against him. They knew how much of a pig he was, and they were sort of got it into their mindset that left-wing politics is good. So now that American Jewish community is still very strong and everything. Now, you couldn't ask for a more pro-Israel president than Mr. Trump, okay? And I like Trump, okay, but he's about as pro-Israel as you get. But despite that, and Trump's vote from American Jews last November was historically high for a Republican, but it was still 72% voted for Kamala Harris. Okay.
Wow.
So, yes, that's right. Okay. And Trump was happy that he got 28% because people like George W. Bush used to get about, 15%. Okay.
Wow.
So it's just a phenomenon that the American Jews, unlike the Australian Jews, who are generally pro-liberal party, okay, but the American Jews are, left-wingers. Their great-grandparent was, and it's just been passed along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the American Democrats. So the Democrats are very pro-Israel because a lot of the Jews are very generous donors, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so the Democrats 100% on board. Now, why are the Republicans on board? Well, it's like you mentioned Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz obviously went to a similar church that I went to because he said when he was 7 years old, he got taught at Sunday school, if I'm nice to Israel, God will be nice to me. That's what he said. And that's what I was taught to. And the American Republican Party is very much a sort of non-metropolitan party, country towns, church-going people, good people with good values and good morals, hard-working, good people. And a significant proportion of them have had the Ted Cruz theology, which is not in the Bible. It's just made up.
Okay? That's right. God defers to Benjamin Netanyahu.
But they really believe it. So you therefore have, of the great superpower of the age, you there have the two big parties that think they hate each other, but on this issue, they are a unity ticket. Okay. And so then Trump comes along, who we thought was going to be very good on foreign policy, and he is very good on foreign policy. I love his peace agenda. I love him trying to fix up Ukraine, India, Pakistan. He did something in the Congo, I think, Armenia and Azerbaijan. I love it. North Korea, South Korea. Trump's a great man, okay? Now, but on this issue, he's just given a blank check. And Trump was the one that came out and said, all the Palestinians can go somewhere else and we'll make Gaza Trump land or something. Just absurd. Just absolutely absurd. But Trump came out and said, and Netanyahu says, that's a great idea. So that's where we're at. It's the United States, and that's not insignificant because they are the world's greatest military power.
Yeah, thus far. And so that's the reason. That's why we need to bow down and kowtow and accept everything that Israel does without question.
Well, I think there's also the fact that, I think that there is an element of sort of deep down, I think that they would be ashamed of what's happened over the last 120 years. Okay. And so
do they know?
They feel a bit agitated about that. And they sort of go excessively about
defensive,
defensive, that's the word. And so they try and bring in all these anti-free speech laws. I've been in Parliament for just over 2 years. There's been 3 tranches of anti-free speech laws, okay?
Yeah.
And they cheer it on. And I'm thinking, look, this is all, I think they're making 2 massive strategic mistakes, okay? They should not equate saying that you are concerned about a genocide and say, if you say that you're automatically an anti-Semite. That is really counterproductive. Firstly, it's not true. Secondly, there are a lot of people out there, particularly young people, who are really upset about the atrocities, and they keep having it shoved down their throat. If you care about these atrocities, you're an anti-Semite. Well, then some people, a small number of them, are going to wake up and say, okay, well, I am then. That's not good. That's not good.
It's not. I thought it was fascinating. Avi was then talking about your position as being a 180-degree flip from being a libertarian through to, I don't know, whatever, being a Marxist, I suppose, because there were Marxists on the bridge. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But he was referring to this as right-wing wokeism. I've been referring to the whole Israeli thing as right-wing wokeism. We've just gone through the last 4 years of Biden as the president in the US, where I was a racist and a misogynist and a transphobic and all the rest of these things. And now I'm being called an anti-Semite. And it's like, I don't care. I don't care what church a person goes to. I don't care what skin color there is. I certainly don't care what they do in the bedroom with whomever they want to do it with. I never have and I never will. And yet I'm being called names again, except this time it's about something really horrible that's going on. So to finish off then, what's as the representative or as a representative of the Libertarian Party, how would you describe the libertarian position on foreign entanglements, wars abroad, things that aren't directly about us?
Okay, well, look, there is, I would say, we can't speak for all libertarians, okay, but
Of
in
course,
terms of the significant libertarian leaders, and as you know, Damon, it is an intellectual movement, it is an ideological movement, but I have found the most persuasive commentators on this subject are usually Jewish libertarians, okay, the Dave Smiths of the world.
Yeah,
Proud
Dave's been
Jews.
great, I think. Harvey doesn't like him, obviously, and I'm just like, he just speaks sense. You check out what he says, and it's like, well, that's true, that's true, that's true. You join the dots and go, I can't find a fault really in your argument. It's
So the libertarians, I would say 80% of libertarians would be skeptical of Israel, and I would say that their view is, those 80%, their view is that libertarians believe that the government should not intervene in foreign squabbles. And it's so imagine like you're back in the playground, or imagine you're in a pub and a fight breaks out between two blokes, and it's not pretty, and you want to stop the fight. Now, what can happen though is if someone goes in to help their mate with good intentions,
somebody else's mate then comes in.
That's right, and before you know it, half the place is a brawl.
Yeah.
Okay, and the same thing in the schoolyard. Okay,
Yep.
So it's always horrible to see humans, physically attacking each other, whether it's a fight or a war, okay? And you want to do something about it. Now, unfortunately, history teaches us that, look, when there's a squabble going on and then you have a third party come in who's not a party to it but just intervenes, usually with good intentions, it makes that squabble, it inflames it, it makes it worse. And it also means the two people in the squabble, it gives them, if this is an option, it gives them an incentive to go and try and find somebody, hey, come and help me in this war. Here's the reasons why you should come and help me in this war. So libertarians say, look, most wars can be avoided, and all the wars that do actually happen, we can minimize them, because war's the worst thing that humans can do to each other. So now, but look, there's 20% of libertarians out there which are cheering on Israel, and which say that, no, we should have a muscular foreign policy in defense of human rights. Okay, well, I
call them fake libertarians because they want to loot and tax the local populace to then send members of the local populace to some other place to fight somebody else's battle while everybody at home doesn't get a say in the matter. It's like, that's not libertarian at all. If you want to go fight, go fight. Do it on your dime.
Right. That's right. We say that if there is a foreign squabble, and if you're an Australian citizen and you feel really strongly about being on one side or the other, and you're dumb enough to go and get involved yourself, well, we should probably try and talk you out of it as your friend. But the government shouldn't stop you.
No.
Okay. And if you have to go and get your head blown off or get your arm blown off, that's on you. You might become a big freedom fighter over there, in the middle of Latin America or wherever it might be. But so that we think that libertarians are very optimistic about the future of the world. We believe we've got to get the state. The state is dangerous. The state is the threat to the future of mankind. Look what Elon Musk is doing. The world should have 10,000 Elon Musks. We should be at Jupiter by now. We should be out of the solar system, and we can do this. Humanity's got so much potential. What's going to stuff us is bloody government. Okay, and so we have to get that government right down. We have to get it right down. Amen. So it can prevent, a World War III. We're all back to the Stone Age. It'll be worse than the Stone Age because everything will be radioactive. Anyway.
I couldn't agree more. John, thank you very much for your time again. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Let's do it.